The Clerk of the House, Sir John Benger, has informed me that he has indicated...
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Waiting for the notification. Started a bit later than I normally do, especially since Brexit Hardman Steve Baker was talking, so he might have had something interesting to say, given the fact that the Northern Ireland Protocol was ruled legal by the UK Supreme Court, which I have here. So you can see Northern Ireland Protocol is lawful Supreme Court rules. So yeah, this will be a fun one. I'm going to put that one into the list of articles to cover very soon, no doubt. So that one's going to be added. I've got a lot more of them to go through, but I think that one's going to be fast-tracked a bit, because it's a good one. So I'm just posting some links in a server. But yeah, I don't know what's going on here, because he's talking about surrendering something. Not sure what this is about. Oops. So.
To His Majesty the King, that he intends to surrender his patent as Clerk of the House in the autumn, to allow him to take up the role of Master of St Catherine's College, Cambridge. There will be an opportunity much nearer the time, but that is a little time of time to point TV.
I'm delighted.
Here we go. The boy. Let me know if the audio is good.
Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted that President Zelensky is here in the United Kingdom today. It is a testament to the unbreakable friendship between our two countries, and I'm proud that we are expanding the training for Ukrainian forces to include jet pilots and Marines, and ensure that Ukraine has a military able to defend its interests today and into the future. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Who cares you had meetings, bro? Oh my God, look at me, celebrate me, I'm doing my job, yeah.
Slava Ukraini, President Zelensky, we salute you. This year, the start will be made to the rebuild of Kettering General Hospital. Northamptonshire Police will reach 1,500 police officers, the highest number ever in its history, and Kettering is set to become one of the best connected towns for ultra-fast broadband in the whole country, thanks to City Fibre's investment. Together with the Prime Minister's pledge to halve inflation and tackle the NHS backlogs, isn't it time to tackle head-on the doom and gloom peddled by those who want this country to fail, and to be far more optimistic about the many good things happening in Kettering and across the country?
Wow, Kettering's getting faster internet and more police officers. And I think some stuff going on with the hospital, that's phenomenal, amazing. A private company is investing in, fibre optics, basically. Yeah, that's, that's the country leading the way, despite the fact that other countries like Singapore have, I think it's gigabit speeds or even 10 gigabit speeds to their house, So clearly we should celebrate the fact that we're behind countries like Singapore. Yeah, amazing, guys.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right, and I'm glad to hear of all the successes in his constituency, especially the redevelopment of Kettering General Hospital, something I know my honourable friend has been campaigning on tirelessly for years. But he's right, this government will continue to focus on delivering the country's priorities.
Is that Kettering General Hospital redevelopment, is that part of the 40 new hospitals, or is that a different thing? Because remember, they said there'll be 40 new hospitals, but I think it's like 6. The other ones are like slight bits of maintenance that are going to happen. So, yeah, that's not great.
Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Jeez, the boy. See if he's got any good questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Get your predictions in about what questions he's going to ask.
Over 11,000 people have died as a result of the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and that number is sadly rising. And I know many families here in the UK will be anxiously awaiting news. I'm sure I speak for the whole House in saying our hearts go out to each and every victim and their families, and we must do all we can to support the rescue and recovery effort. Mr. Speaker, this House is honoured to be addressed today by President Zelensky. From the outset of the war, he has symbolised the heroism, the resolve and the bravery of his people. The Prime Minister and I joined this House together in 2015 We've lived through important moments in our domestic and international politics. But none of those experiences compares to the pain and suffering of the people of Ukraine. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that right across this House it is vital that we all continue to stand together in full support of Ukraine?
That feels like a question, a jab more at kind of some of the left-wing people in the Labour Party who want a ceasefire, and maybe I don't know if any of the right-wingers in the Tory Party are calling for an immediate ceasefire, for the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So I do wonder who that question was aimed at. Very strange. It felt like a plant question from a Tory MP. Genuinely, very weird question there.
Minister.
Well, can I first join with the honourable member for paying our respects and thoughts to the people of Turkey and Syria, particularly those affected by the earthquake and the first responders who are doing such a valiant job. The House will be reassured to know that we are in touch with the Turkish and Syrian authorities and providing all assistance that they have required of us, including 77 search and rescue responders that arrived yesterday and have already begun work. And I spoke to the President yesterday to ensure that we are in close communication. And can I thank the honourable gentleman for his comments on Ukraine. It's something that not only the whole country can be proud of, but the entire House can be proud that we came together to stand by Ukraine when the moment mattered, and that we will continue to stand with them united as one Parliament and one United Kingdom.
Just for the record, he is the Right Honourable Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for that answer because
he goofed last week and called Keir Starmer Prime Minister, apparently, so that's why he's kind of clarified a bit there.
every time Putin has been appeased, he's been back for more. And so does the Prime Minister agree with me that across this House we must speak with one voice and say this terrible conflict must end with the defeat of Putin in Ukraine?
Once again, you know, it doesn't feel like that's a jab or anything towards Sunak. You know, I get Zelensky's in the House, but it's just two bizarre questions. Two really bizarre questions. I don't get what he's going for here.
Mr. Speaker, our objective remains to ensure a Ukrainian victory in this conflict. Vladimir Putin's aggression cannot be seen in any way to have been successful, and that's why we have accelerated and increased our support militarily for Ukraine this year. It's a decision that...
What's really stupid is, when I think when Putin attacked parts of Chechnya, he was praised by people like Tony Blair. So, you know, he was encouraged. His acts of aggression were encouraged. I think up until he took Crimea, when they did face minor sanctions, which a lot more should have been done about, you know, the Russian annexation of Crimea, but we just didn't do it. And so when he went to take Ukraine, people were like, oh my God, I can't believe he's done this. But every act of aggression, he has either faced minimal international condemnation or been encouraged. So, you know, I'm not surprised he's done this, because he didn't think the consequences were going to be this great. Like, he didn't anticipate countries like Germany having to, you know, fair enough, Germany's still buying gas from, I think it's Kazakhstan, and that gas is coming from Russia, which is around about the houses. It's not just Germany, it's the EU as well, as a whole, buying, increasing gas supplies massively from countries like Kazakhstan, I think. But you know, like, if you wanna condemn international aggression, you have to do a lot more than what we've done towards Russia in the past. You know, any act of annexation or invasion should be immediately condemned. The problem is, you know, certain Western countries also do similar actions, you know, when it comes to wars, and that's a big problem. So, you know, you have to keep a clean house before you can condemn others. But I would argue Russia's invasion of Ukraine is very different to some of the Western interventions we've seen in the past. But I don't want to be accused of being too hypocritical.
That I took as Prime Minister. Today we are going even further, not just having provided Challenger tanks and being one of the first countries to do so, which catalysed the provision of tanks from other nations as well, but also today to move to start training Ukrainian Marines in the advanced capabilities they will need to mount further offensive, but also to train their pilots on advanced combat aircraft.
So training of Ukrainian Marines, that screams to me that they're going to plan some sort of attack on Crimea if Marines are more water-based units. But then again, I think it was the Marines that did the attack on, what's his name, Osama. So I don't know, what do I know?
The House can be reassured we will continue to support Ukraine to ensure decisive military victory on the battlefield this year.
But again, two really whack questions from Starmer.
Can I welcome the additional support the Prime Minister has outlined today? I've had the privilege, I'm sure he has, of seeing firsthand the brilliant work our military is doing in Salisbury to train Ukrainians in defending themselves. We all support this work and the UK's role in the international drive to ensure that Ukraine has the weapons and the technology required to defend herself. Does the Prime Minister agree that continuing this international effort is the only way to ensure Putin's defeat?
I mean, that's nonsense. It's not the only way. If it's up to Ukraine what they want. Ukraine at the moment, I think they have a policy of taking back all of Ukraine, which includes Donbass and the eastern areas as well as Crimea. But it'd be up to the people of Ukraine how they want to settle this in the end. It won't be up to us. So his questioning is very, very weird here. Very, very weird. I don't know what Starmer's going for. At the end of the day, there could be a negotiated settlement, maybe part of Ukraine's annexed. I don't know, but that's up to the people of Ukraine. That's not up to us. That's the problem.
Mr. Speaker, the House may not all be aware that actually we have continued to train Ukrainian soldiers because it's something that we have done for years before the conflict started and something that we should be very proud of.
But I think we've been doing so since 2014, since the annexation of Crimea, I'll be honest.
Obviously, we've intensified those efforts. Last year, we trained 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers through Operation Interflex. This year, the Defence Secretary announced that last year we'll be training 20,000 Ukrainian soldiers, in addition to the Marines and Air Force pilots that I mentioned earlier. But the Right Honourable Gentleman is right to highlight this has been an international effort. One thing that is a mark of UK leadership in this particular area is that around a dozen other countries have all come here to the UK to take part in our training programs to support Ukrainian soldiers. Many members from around this House will have visited in their constituencies that effort. It's something that's making an incredible difference on the ground, and I know something that the President Zelensky is incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, he didn't, to be fair. I need to read the specifics on it, but he, and the UK training foreign soldiers, that happens a lot. The UK is kind of built for that. It was another country or Russia without nuclear weapons, it would have been a replay of the Gulf War I, Iraqi. Yeah, that's the problem. The nuclear weapons changes everything. There's a reason why we had the Cold War, and it's mainly because of nuclear weapons. It's a massive game changer. A massive game changer.
Yes, Starmer.
I think the whole House would like to thank those involved in the incredible training that is going on. Mr. Speaker, before I entered this House, I had responsibility for fighting for justice in The Hague for victims of Serbian aggression. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that when the war in Ukraine is over, Putin and all his cronies must stand at The Hague and face justice?
Yeah, rule one of any nation state is do not give up your nuclear weapons, regardless of what anyone asks you. If you have nuclear weapons, do not give them up, because it's just bad times. It's bad times.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable Gentleman is absolutely right that we must hold those to account for the horrific crimes that they have committed. I'm proud that the United Kingdom has played, again, a leadership role in this regard, being one of the first countries to provide financial and technical support, putting investigators on the ground. We're shortly to be hosting a conference together with the Dutch. And also, one of the things that I discussed with President Zelensky this morning is our support for the work of the ICC, where, thanks to the efforts of UK members, I'm hopeful that we will see the first indictments very shortly.
And that's good, taking Russia to the International Criminal Court. I think this is all good stuff here. South Africa gave up their nuclear weapons and were rewarded for that. I mean, sure, for now, until some lunatic invades them. Does that include people who pushed Russian propaganda and took their money, Sunak? I don't think it does. I don't think it does. But given the fact that the Tory party have a massive hole in their finances, will we see some of that Russian money flow back in towards the Tory party? Given that the Tory party is still protecting a lot of Russian oligarchs, we shall see.
Mr. Speaker, across this House, we don't just hope for Ukraine's victory, we believe in it. And part of that victory must be Ukraine's reconstruction. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that Russia should pay for the destruction it has caused through the wealth lying dormant in blocked Russian government assets?
Prime Minister.
Yeah, I think the sanctioned money should be put to use, but I don't know if it's legal to do that. That's one of the only issues I run into. But again, this line of questioning is just bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Oops.
Mr. Speaker, we are the third largest humanitarian and economic donor to Ukraine, £1.4 billion of support that we have provided through direct grant assistance and guarantees at multilateral lending organisations. And again, the House will remember we took a lead in imposing economic sanctions on Russian entities, including...
we didn't, did we, Chief? Like, there are still oligarchs that benefit from their investments in the UK. Like, Rishi, mate, it's not a competition, but if it was a competition, we ain't doing as good as the EU or the US. Let's be real now, dog. Let's be honest. There are still Russians benefiting today. You've got what's his name, man? One of the guys who runs the Wagner Group or is in charge of it, Prigozhin. I think that's his name, Prigozhin. He sued a British journalist using sanctioned money. The Treasury allowed him to use his sanctioned money to sue a British journalist. I think he runs Bellingcat, because Bellingcat was exposing him. He sued a journalist over that, and you allowed it to happen, Chief. When you say that you led the world in sanctioning Russian entities and oligarchs, that's the most nonsense statement. The most nonsense statement I think I've ever heard from you, mate. Let's be honest now. Not Boris Johnson levels of lies, but yeah, and the fact that Starmer's just teeing him up with easy questions is just shameful.
Individuals and state-sanctioned assets. We've ensured the provision of funds here will be put in a foundation.
We don't ask about Sunak's wife here because she's a non-dom, and she was a non-dom, and she might have made money from Russia. We don't ask about that. We don't ask those kind of questions, man. I see Russian oligarchs are taking lots of court action after this war to get their money back, etc. I mean, they're already taking action now. They're taking court action now, and it's secret. Open Democracy have covered it. I've got a video coming out about it soon. Their work was really, really good. QA, if you want the article, let me know and I'll send it to you. But Open Democracy have covered a story where a lot of the oligarchs, they're not on the list, the sanctions list, and they are fighting back against their sanctions. Yeah, no worries, mate. I'll send it to you. But yeah, it's just shameful. This whole tangent is absolutely shameful. It's not through legal aid. They're going to hire top lawyers. It won't be through legal aid.
For reconstruction in Ukraine, and we are currently working with international partners through the legal process to use those assets to fund Ukrainian reconstruction. Of course, that's something that we all want to see, and we're working with our partners to achieve that.
Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a country, we've always been at our best when we stand up to tyrannical aggressors threatening their neighbours and peace on our continent. That's why the Labour Party helped found NATO, and why our commitment to NATO is as unshakable today.
Yeah, this is essentially 6 shots at people within the Labour Party. That's what this is. That's what this is. I don't see this in any other way. He's not done anything here to question the government. He has done this to attack people within his own party, and that is just disgusting, in my opinion.
As it was back then. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that whatever differences we may have, no matter what difficulties we face as a country, we in this House have a duty to stand on the shoulders of giants who came before us and support Ukraine's fight for freedom, liberty and victory?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker,
if I was Sunak, I'd be thinking, yo, my man's giving me tap-ins, fam. What's this? What's going on here? Easy goals, fam. Easy wins.
The leading European ally in NATO, as we always have done. We continue to increase funding in our armed forces by £24 billion at the last spending review to ensure that we maintain not just our NATO obligation to spend 2% of our GDP on defence, but also we participate in every NATO operation.
You've got cost of living crisis, Bank of England increasing interest rates this week, the Brexit impacts hitting faster than predicted. So many other things, they've got the stuff going on with the Northern Ireland Protocol. You could ask him about that. My man's like, here's 6 shots, I'm going to miss every shot, If, all I'm saying is if it was Keir Starmer aiming at Tupac, Tupac would still be alive. As the classic joke goes, this is shameful stuff. Twitter bot account, retweet linked, and Brexit people have been questioning if the UK should leave. You hate to see it.
And remain the leading nation when it comes to contributions to NATO's rapid response force.
If the SNP do, get Ian Blackford back in. Just if my man, I don't know his name right. If my man asks softball questions, just get Ian Blackford in. Honestly.
And the NATO Readiness Initiative. But I join with the right honourable gentleman in saying that this House and this country will stand united with Ukraine until we ensure the defeat of Vladimir Putin's unprovoked, unsanctioned aggression, and that we will make sure that Ukraine is not only victorious, but that we bring peace to its people.
I can't wait to see Phil spin this one, but this is shocking stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Global Combat Air Programme, including Team Tempest, is vital for UK national security and for the world-class aerospace cluster we've got in Lancashire, with many businesses in Burnley and Padiham. This aircraft will protect UK skies, give the RAF the tools it needs for the future, and deepen our relationship with allies like Japan and Italy. So can I ask the Prime Minister, with a refresh of the integrated review taking place, to commit not just to the design and development of this aircraft, but to its production in Lancashire too, providing skilled jobs for generations to come for my constituents and residents all across the county of Lancashire.
Mr. Speaker, I was delighted to announce this landmark international partnership with Japan and Italy in December. Team Tempest partners already employ 2,500 people in the UK, with over 1,200 in the northwest. And as we are making more progress, we're going to continue to invest in skills and technology at the BAE Systems factory of the future in Lancashire.
Is there an aerospace? I don't know, because we bought a satellite company, I think it's called OneWeb, and that didn't go great from what I recall. So I couldn't answer the question there, honestly.
Stephen Flynn, Leader of the SNP.
There he is, big Flynn fan. Big Flynn, let's see what you've got,
Thank you,
Chief.
Mr. Speaker. And on behalf of my party, I'd like to send our condolences to all of those impacted by the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and also to welcome the exchange between the Leader of the Opposition and the Prime Minister in respect of Ukraine. We all in this House are united in our condemnation of Vladimir Putin and in our hope for a better future for Ukraine. It will be an honour for all of us to listen to President Zelensky this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, in recent days, the former Prime Minister said that she did not regret her time in office. Does the Prime Minister regret her time in office?
Jeez, my man, Big Flynn, my man actually has decent questions. Honestly, that was... Whatever Starmer was doing was shocking. At least my man's asking, better questions.
I think they'll clear up which one, Prime Minister.
He said she. He said she, so it's
Speaker,
English trust.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to all my predecessors for the contribution that they make to public life, and can I join with the right honourable gentleman in saying that I know the whole House will be looking forward to hearing from President Zelensky at the conclusion of PMQs.
My man, he didn't want to say it, especially since Liz Truss is on the comeback trail. So yeah, that's a bit. Yeah, he laughed. I think he laughed because he knew it was bad. Her tenure was very bad.
Stephen Flynn.
That's interesting.
Mr. Speaker, hold on a minute. Let's reflect upon the damage that was caused. 30 billion wiped off the UK economy. Pension funds brought to the brink of collapse. The pound reaching parity with the dollar. And interest rates for mortgage holders right across these aisles soaring. Now, the former Prime Minister won't apologise for the damage that she has caused. So on behalf of the Tory party, will he apologise for her?
Jeez, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. That's so much better than whatever Starmer was saying. You know, she made the cost of living crisis so much worse, and yet, you know, she got away with it. She didn't get away with it. The country kicked her out, really, and the party kicked her out. But you know, she's trying to rewrite her legacy here, and you know, Sunak in that sense was also trying to rewrite it a bit. But you know, what she did was horrible. You know, in the space of, I think it was 2 months? 2 months, including the Queen's death, she caused absolute chaos. And you know, she's on the comeback trail. You know, she's trying to rehabilitate her image. And Starmer didn't mention it. He did 6 really basic questions on Ukraine. And yeah, I've never seen someone capitulate so easily at PMQs before.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on the first day that I took office, I said that mistakes had been made. But what we have done is to ensure that right now, he mentioned the pound at a multi-month high, borrowing costs restored back to where they should be.
Borrowing costs aren't restored to where they should be.
Stabilised, a clear plan to halve inflation and grow the economy.
Borrowing costs can't be where they're back to where they were because interest rates are higher now. So shouldn't our borrowing costs be higher inherently just because of that? The interest rates are at 4% now compared to what they were, you know, a few months ago. So I don't, you know, that point doesn't make sense.
That's what the Conservatives are delivering in government, and we continue to deliver it as well for the people of Scotland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Burghley House in my constituency is bidding to host the World Eventing Championships in 2026.
What?
This event is one of the pinnacles of the sport. And if we were successful in our bid, it would provide a massive boost to the local economy, as well as massive coverage for the UK on the global scene. Burghley has a formidable track record of success, having previously hosted 2 World Championships and 6 European Championships.
All right, I'm going to file this under who cares.
With the comments made about the unfolding human tragedy in Turkey and Syria.
We're going to skip some of the filler questions, I'll be honest. I'm only here for the good stuff.
With the warm words to welcome our ally, President Zelensky. He will know that this country and this House has total support for Ukraine's resistance
Who is Gibbo?
to Vladimir Putin's illegal invasion. And it is a source of great pride that the British people have stood firm, united and unwavering in support of the brave...
These men had a rough morning. This man here, I think, and definitely this man here, Donaldson, he's had a rough old morning, hasn't he? He's had a rough time. He's looking sleepy. He's looking like he's past his morning nap because the Northern Ireland protocol has been ruled legal. But in the Supreme Court, he's had a rough old day.
Heroes of Ukraine. Mr. Speaker, when President Zelensky addressed this House last year, he asked that we treat Russia as a terrorist state. Since then, Liberal Democrats have been urging the government to fulfil that request by prescribing the Wagner...
I've seen occasionally Donaldson does get a question in. I think each leader of the leaders of the party should get a question. I think that's how it should work, rather than giving it to dumb backbench MPs who are dumb, who are like, oh, will the Prime Minister congratulate my constituency for not being an absolute dump? And the Prime Minister will say, yes, I congratulate your constituency for not being an absolute dump.
Mercenary group. They are doing Putin's bidding, carrying out atrocities against Ukrainians on a daily basis. So on this symbolic day, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister finally commit to prescribing the Wagner Group, a crucial part of treating Russia as the rogue state that it is?
I think asking about the Wagner Group is fine, but I think he should have been asking about Prigozhin. He should have been asking about why he was allowed to sue British journalists. I know they mentioned it in the House before, and Jeremy Hunt says he's investigating it, but I think I would have made the further point about him. How was he allowed to get away with stuff? But, you know, labelling the Wagner Group, I think, a terrorist group is, it's pretty big. And, you know, they do make up a part of, you know, a large part of the Russian military without them officially being there. You know, essentially a mercenary group that help supplement the Russian military.
Oh, well, Mr. Speaker, we have taken a lead from the beginning of this conflict in sanctioning and taking action against those entities connected with the war effort in Russia and beyond. With regard to Wagner Group, the honourable gentleman will know that we have already sanctioned the Wagner Group in its entirety, as well as taking specific action against...
So why was that guy, Prigozhin, why was he allowed to sue a British journalist chief? You know, if we are so well leading in these sanctions, why was he allowed to use his money to sue a British journalist? Can anyone ask him that question? Honestly,
against particular leaders, as he'll know. With regard to prescriptions, it's not something that we routinely comment on in public, but rest assured we continue to keep all of the prescriptions that we have under review.
Peter Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now there's your boy QA.
22 years ago this month, a good friend of mine died from AIDS. Had he been tested for HIV, I am confident that with the medical advances we have made, he would still be alive today. As my right honourable friend will know, this week is HIV testing, and I welcome the government's ambitions to end new infections by 2030. Can I ask my right honourable friend to thank the Terence Higgins Trust for their incredible work? And will he look to extend opt-out HIV testing to more areas of high prevalence so that we can help discover more undiagnosed cases?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his incredibly thoughtful question and express my sympathies to him on the loss of his friend, and join him in paying tribute to the work of the Terence Higgins Trust, as I know the whole House will also join me in doing. They do fantastic work, and I look forward to talking to my honourable friend about what more we can do to spread HIV testing and prevent more people from needlessly suffering.
Dave Dugan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The UK Government's fiscally illiterate electricity generator levy will choke off billions from future investments in renewable energy projects, the kind of projects that my Angus constituency excels at delivering. This investment will find its way to more favourable jurisdictions, putting thousands of green jobs in Scotland and our energy transition at risk. So will the Prime Minister commit to scrapping this environmentally and economically damaging tax, or will he instead confirm that he and this latest Chancellor know the price of everything and the value of nothing?
So what, is this about windfall taxes on green energy or some sort of levy? A tax effectively on renewable energy? I mean, we should really be looking to cut taxes and things like that, levies on green energy. Well, levy is basically a tax, just using a better word. But we should really look at, getting rid of as much as we can, so then they build more renewable energy. But it should be the government leading the charge on building renewable energy, solar panels and offshore wind turbines, rather than just leaving it to private companies. Yeah, I saw the windfall tax, which was just shameful, because it's just shocking, because it should have been done on, the petrol ones. It shouldn't have been done on the renewable ones, because they're the ones we actually need to encourage. They're the ones we actually need to encourage to keep going. You can put it on all of them, fine, but just putting it specifically on renewable ones makes no sense.
Well, Mr. Speaker, no, I don't think it's right that because of a war, when energy companies are making windfall profits, that those profits should go untaxed. That's what our levy does. It's right that we recover those excess profits from energy companies as a result of the war. So
you're going to do it to Shell? You're going to do it to BP? Shell? BP? No?
And give that money back to the country in the form of support with their energy bills.
I think he's trolling us.
What is economically damaging for Scotland is the SNP's refusal to acknowledge the existence and need for a transition, and that's to support the North Sea oil and gas industry, which we are proud to do.
Yeah, he's trolling us. Most definitely.
Mr. Speaker, human trafficking is when you move people legally from one place to another, often with the promise of a job, and then force that person into prostitution or labour exploitation. It has nothing to do with people who come illegally here in small boats. That is smuggling. A third of all human trafficking in the United Kingdom occurs wholly within the borders of the United Kingdom. When I was chairman of the all-party group against human trafficking, we campaigned for an independent commissioner. One was appointed in 2014. However, since April of last year, we have not had one. This is unacceptable. Would the Prime Minister use his good offices to get one appointed urgently?
Prime Minister.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for all his work in this important area. I'm happy to look into the particular position that he mentions, and I know that he is proud, as I am, of our world-leading modern slavery legislation, thanks to the former Prime Minister on these benches. It is a world-leading piece of legislation. We're showing an example about how to tackle this, but I'll make sure that we have someone in place to do the job.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are now more than 50% more social care staff vacancy than last year. People are stuck in hospital beds with nowhere to go. In my Bath constituency, the Liberal Democrat Council and our local hospital, the RUH, are trying their level best and trying new innovative solutions to tackle the social care backlog, but the Prime Minister knows that this is a workforce crisis. We must recruit and retain social care staff. So I ask him, will he support the Liberal Democrat proposal to pay a higher minimum wage to social care workers to tackle the social care shortages that underpin the NHS crisis?
The problem is money. You know, like money is the key issue. Like you have to. These jobs are not easy jobs. You know, people claim, you know, the phrase low skilled is genuinely just such a dumb thing in some ways, because, you know, these jobs do require a decent amount of training, but also they are very high effort jobs. Looking after older people is incredibly difficult. Anyone who's had to look after an old timer knows, especially the more vulnerable ones, the ones that have health issues or mental health issues. And that's the key issue. You know, you're not going to get people into these sectors unless you pay decent money. We've had a shortage for a long time now, and healthcare workers were not valued, or not healthcare workers, so social care workers, adult social care workers are not valued in this country. That's why we face constant problems of an aging population. People are just aging out and living longer, combined with the fact that we don't have the people to look after them. You know, these are the things that we're running into, and one of the reasons I think why they can't release more patients from NHS beds is because they need a safe place to go to be discharged to, and that simply doesn't exist. That's the issue.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we recently announced.
You know, given my guy Starmer took 6 shots and basically helped Starmer out or Sunak out, yeah, it's quite subdued here because it's. I think it might be because Zelensky's in the house. They want to act a bit more kind of civil. I don't know. Maybe everyone wants to be on Zelensky's good side. Look at how much non-employed carers get paid. It's pennies. Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, it's just if you don't put the money on the table, nothing changes here. Like, you have to actually pay people to look after. I think it's non-employed carers are family members typically, right? They look after their own family members and they get nothing for it really. It's just a broken system, and the government have to do a lot more. To fix it, and they just don't want to. Yeah, there's a statesman in the house. You know, no theatrics here. We have a foreign leader in the house, who's the man everyone wants to take pictures with. You know, Zelensky.
£1 billion more for health and social care, and in particular, part of that money will go to a new discharge fund to speed the discharge of people from hospitals back into their homes.
It's not about making discharge quicker, you donut. It's about making sure that when they are discharged, they have someone to look after them and can make a safe recovery. That is what it's about, you mug.
Their communities. That money is already making a difference on the ground. We can see the numbers of people unnecessarily in hospitals are already reducing, easing the burdens in our A&E departments, and that comes on top of the money that we've invested to improve training, recruitment and development of our valued social care staff, and that will make sure that we can reduce vacancy rates, increase retention and get the workforce that we know we need.
Aaron Bradley.
Mr. Speaker, last month, together with fellow North Staffordshire MPs, I hosted an event, a tea party, to welcome Ukrainian refugees living in North Staffordshire. Would the Prime Minister join me in thanking the sponsors, in particular Alton Towers, who hosted the event, the host families, and all the people of North Staffordshire who've made our Ukrainian friends so very welcome?
Well, I join my...
I mean, it was quick, but it's a filler question.
Honourable friend in thanking Alton Towers, the other sponsors, and indeed all the families involved in putting on a tea party. I know many members from across the House will have done something similar. It's a wonderful way to show our support for the families to our security.
Watch recently released a report into unaccountable government bodies such as the Counter-Disinformation Unit, the Rapid Response Unit and the British Army's 77th Brigade.
The Counter who? I've not heard of them.
We're seeing huge swathes of public money being spent recording political dissent on social media under the guise of tackling misinformation. Politicians, including myself, the leader of the opposition, academics, activists and journalists, and even members of public have been subjected to monitoring by Whitehall officials. This at the same time as we're waiting for the reporting of the Pitchford inquiry into questionable state surveillance on campaigns like the Stephen Lawrence campaign. So can the Prime Minister tell us how much public money is spent on these units and whether he thinks it's a justifiable thing to do in our democracy to spend public money in this manner? And could you also update the House on the progress of the Pitchford inquiry?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have to get back to the Honourable Lady on the Pitchford inquiry and indeed to give her an exact figure. But in general, I think certainly I on this side of the House.
Is this the Spy Cops bill? Is this the issues, like, is this the product of the Spy Cops bill, or is this something new, something different? What's going on here?
Believe very strongly in free speech and will make sure that we
How
continue
scared
to
should
protect
I
it wherever we can.
Bring it forward.
Mr. Speaker, Friday the 24th of February will mark 1 year of Russia's barbaric war in Ukraine. Thousands of people have been killed. Over 1,000 children have been killed or injured. So will my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, call for a national minute of silence on that day so that all across the United Kingdom, the people here can show their unending support for the people of Ukraine?
Minister.
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for all the work that she has done in her previous roles to ensure that we provide appropriate support to those in Ukraine. I thank her very much for her suggestion. I'm sure it's something that we are considering as we speak, and there will be many other ways that we can mark that moment, not least as an international community continuing to show united condemnation and isolation of Russia.
Terry McCarthy.
This week, Mr. Speaker, is Children's Mental Health Week. We know that adverse childhood experiences, whether that be growing up in poverty in the UK or indeed living through the horrors of war in the Ukraine, can have a lifelong impact on mental health. With the number of children in mental health crisis increasing year on year in the UK, does the Prime Minister believe he's doing enough to address the causes of childhood trauma?
Prime Minister.
Can I thank the honourable member for her question and let her know that we are doing more to make sure that the extra money we're putting into tackling mental health is particularly focused on young people, where we've seen a very startling increase in the number of young people presenting with mental health conditions that we all would like to arrest and reduce. That's why we're putting more mental health community support into schools and colleges across the country. That's being rolled out as we speak, and also just the other.
Sunak gets his eyebrows done.
The week we announced more money for crisis centres and urgent treatment centres in the mental health space in 100 different communities around the country, which will make a difference.
Richard Graham.
Mr. Speaker, this country's military and diplomatic support for Ukraine is strong and has strong support across the country. Less well known is a programme that has gone on for a decade, led by the Westminster Foundation for Democracy to support.
Yeah, Majik, I wouldn't be surprised about that. I wouldn't be surprised about that if that was the case. Or just, people that domestic abuse cases where they live in houses where it's much harder for the abuse victim to escape. That would be another issue as well. And kids grow up in that, and it doesn't end well for anyone. Wait, Majid, you don't think Sunak gets his eyebrows done? I don't know, mate.
Rada or Ukrainian Parliament. So does my right honourable friend agree that should this country host a reconstruction conference with the Ukrainians to discuss how Ukraine can win the peace, that the Foreign Office and the Westminster Foundation and other bodies can come together to see how we can help President Zelensky in the next stage of his country's development?
Prime Minister.
I mean, first of all, you wait for the war to be over, and surely a conference like that should be held in like Poland, who've done arguably a lot more to help Ukraine in other ways than we have done. Surely it should be done closer to Ukraine, maybe in Ukraine if it's safe, or at least in Poland where it's is relatively safe. Surely that's the place where you hold the conference to talk about rebuilding Ukraine, not in the UK. I mean, it doesn't make sense to have it here. If you're talking about countries that have done the most to help Ukraine, you'd arguably be the United States, because their weaponry is, I think, more advanced than ours, and they have more cool tech than we do.
My honourable friend makes an excellent point, and as we look forward to hosting the Reconstruction Conference for Ukraine later this year, I'll make sure to take up his suggestion and involve all those organisations that can provide support to us and ultimately make sure that we can rebuild Ukraine in the way that it deserves.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government will want to help maintain popular backing in the UK for our support to Ukraine, including by helping people with their energy bills. More than 40,000 people across Devon live in homes that are off the gas grid. They're on the rural equivalent of prepayment meters. They need the money up front in order to pay for their heating oil and for their alternative fuels. The government announced an alternative fuel payment last September, but people in Devon are still waiting. What will the Prime Minister say to people who are off the gas grid and are waiting for their alternative fuel payment 5 months later?
Well, I would say the government have done a terrible job and needs to do better. And the prepayment meter system's a joke, considering they pay more for their energy than people who pay pay monthly or pay what's it called, every 3 months. That's what I would say.
Mr. Speaker, we specifically considered people who were off the gas grid when designing the energy support schemes that we put in place, which is why the bulk of the support was delivered to those who had electricity meters to ensure it reached people like he mentioned, including many of my own rural constituents as well. That money should be getting to them. I'll make sure that it moves as quickly as possible. But we also put in place the local household support fund to provide discretionary funding that local councils can give to those households who are most in need.
5 months, dog. You waited 5 months. It's still not gotten there. You know, give it some welly, lad, because it's going to have to get there quicker.
Speaker, there's no doubt that the NHS is under enormous pressure across the UK, and despite record numbers of nurses and doctors, workforce remains a challenge. So can I welcome that for the first time the NHS will get an independent...
Record numbers? Record numbers in the NHS? Are you sure about that? What if we looked at per capita of healthcare workers per person in this country? You know, would you say those are still record numbers?
verified workforce plan, but we have to think long-term on buildings too, and so in that regard can the Prime Minister look closely at proposals to rebuild Leighton Hospital, which is a campaign that has the support of thousands of residents in the South Cheshire.
Don't worry, mate, we're getting 40 new hospitals, so you know, if you want one of those, you're gonna have to beg a bit better for it, but you know, 40 new hospitals, maybe you'll get one of those, who knows.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I know that Leighton Hospital has been allocated over £44 million to address some of the immediate issues at that site, but I also know that the Honourable Friend is keen to ensure continued investment in his local hospital, and I know that the Department for Health are looking at more hospitals to join the new hospital programme, and I'm sure that they will have heard what he said, indeed the voices of his constituents too.
Liz Twist.
Mr. Speaker, bus services are vital to our communities for work, for health, for school and for socialising. But in a matter of days, the buses that millions depend on will face another crisis with the ending of the bus recovery grant, and predicted cuts of 15 to 20% in mileage would be devastating for people across my constituency and others. Will the Prime Minister commit to extending the bus recovery grant so that communities in my constituency and many others are not left isolated, and will he ask the Transport Secretary to meet with me to discuss this issue?
Don't worry, man. Don't worry. The free market will sort it out. You know, we don't need this socialism, this grant money. You know, the free market will resolve the issue for the rural people of wherever constituency she's from, because you know that's how the way the country works, isn't it? You know, you don't need a grant. You know, you don't need socialism. What you need is the free market to come in and run the bus routes for you. Unless, of course, it doesn't make any profit because it's probably a rural area, which means you're out of luck, Chief. You know, that's a geography problem there.
Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, we recognise the vital importance of buses in our local communities, and that's why we're well on the way to fulfilling our commitment to invest £3 billion over this Parliament in our bus transformation, and that includes funding for local councils to subsidise unprofitable routes through the Bus Services Operators Grant, and recent money to help cap operator fares at £2 through the spring.
Yeah, that £2 thing is good, or it's okay. I think it should be less, to be honest. I think it should be less, to be honest, but it's a decent level considering like the cost of a day rider, which a day pass has gone up by about, I'm going to say 50 pence, because it's £4.80 now compared to £4.20, which it was last year, so it's gone up a decent amount. So yeah, I welcome the £2 cap thing, but I think it should be less. I'd want to see 150 and I give you some praise. I think it should be 150, mate. I'd say 150 and I'd give him praise.
Of course, we always continue to see how we can support bus services in the long term.
Anna Fur.
Speaker, would my right honourable friend agree that apprenticeships, such as those offered by the excellent South Essex College in Leigh-on-Sea, which I visited on Monday for National Apprenticeship Week, are a great pathway into work?
Yeah. I mean, that's the most pointless question I've ever heard in my life. Would you say apprenticeships, especially at this place, are a great way back into work? Well, obviously, yes. That's the point of apprenticeships. Come on. It's a filler question.
Mr. Speaker, can I join the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition in their condolences to the victims of the devastating earthquake in Turkey and Syria? Can I also reiterate my thanks to the Foreign Secretary for the speed of the initial UK response? Mr. Speaker, but as we enter the third day of the earthquake, the bitter cold, unforgiving weather means that the likelihood of pulling more survivors from the rubble becomes less and less likely, and the immediate humanitarian impact is devastating. So can I ask the Prime Minister when we can expect an announcement on what further aid his government will commit to relief efforts, and what discussions he is having with his international counterparts to ensure our response meets the scale of this crisis?
Prime Minister.
That's actually a good question. I thank the Honourable Lady for her question and join her in paying tribute to the Foreign Secretary for the work that he's doing. So I spoke to President Erdogan yesterday to reiterate our commitment to provide Turkey with what support they need. Right now, that is search and rescue. She's right, we are in that vital window at the beginning of a situation like this, which is why our search and rescue teams are on the ground providing that assistance. The Foreign Secretary is also speaking to his counterpart at the United Nations to ensure that the humanitarian support that we can provide is well targeted. Also in Syria, where we fund the White Helmets, which are on the ground doing work. We're continuing to be in touch with everyone that we need to, and I can assure the Honourable Lady will continue to provide all the support that is asked of us.
I'm pleased to announce, as members will be aware, that President Zelensky will be addressing both houses in Westminster Hall imminently. That will require me to suspend the House's business in a moment. Members attending the address should go directly to the hall following the doorkeeper's directions. The House is expected to...
Alright gang, I guess that's me done, because he's cutting PMQ short because Zelensky is giving a speech. I don't know if... I'll see if there's... Oh, I've got my Fruity Loops download there. I don't know if there's anything that... We'll see what he says. Normally it's thank you for the guns and weapon. Thank you for the weapons. Can we get more weapons, please? Generally, that's how Zelensky's things go. So, yeah, I don't know if it's worth covering, or if there's anything good come out of it. I'm sure like the Guardian or the BBC will cover it, and I will cover it from there. But for now, that's me done on this video stream. Yeah, it's I don't know what big man what's his name was on today. Starmer. There's too many people with S's in their names. I'm not sure what Starmer was doing today. Honestly, he gave Sunak 6 easy questions about Ukraine and just used it to take digs at certain members of the Labour Party, which is kind of just boring, to be honest. Just boring and a bit wet. But I think that's what Starmer is, boring and a bit wet, to be honest. I don't know why he did it. He's wasted this week of PMQs, to be honest with you. I started recording for that, really. Hopefully he does better next week. I mean, I get Zelensky's in the House asking 2 or 3 questions about Ukraine, fine, but 6 questions and making them such easy layups, like, oh yeah, we were a founding member of NATO, we should uphold our membership of NATO, right? And he was saying, yeah, if he focused on the sanctions or the Wagner Group and specifically Prigozhin, I would have been happier with that, but he didn't, and he just gave him 6 layups, and it's just like, it's like, you could had Tory MPs do that for him. It's a bit stupid. I think I say a bit, I mean a lot stupid, but anyways, we'll leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you do watch this back, especially, you've got the comments, like the ones that are more permanent. But yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.